40,000 chainsaw-related injuries and deaths are reported annually in the United States. In fact, Carl Smith, fifth-generation logger and expert with the U.S. Forest Service, states that chainsaw operators don't need any special license or any training to operate a chainsaw. So today, I'd like to present to you some safety practices and how to change a chainsaw blade. So first of all, when working with a chainsaw, some of the basic safety procedure or equipment that you should have is, number one, safety glasses. Good pair of safety glasses is definitely something you should have when operating a chainsaw. Second, you should have a pair of earplugs. Here I have just the foam type, but you could also use the earmuffs for demonstration purposes. I'm going to use these. Normally you would just twist the end a little bit down and then work them in and let them automatically form into your ears. So now that you have good ear protection, third thing in the basic safety items would be a good set of gloves. Okay. Now there's a lot more things that you should wear when you're actually operating a chainsaw, such things as a face shield if you have one, maybe hard hat protection, definitely your clothing. You don't want to have any loose clothing that could get caught up in the saw, and you definitely should have some good work boots, preferably some safety boots if you have them. Okay. And now, as we move on, I'm going to show you here's a chainsaw, and chainsaws are pretty much the same as far as changing out a chainsaw blade from one to the next. They're pretty much all the same. There's some variations, but for the most part, they are the same. One thing that you'll find amongst most chainsaws is this little tool called a swench. It's a wrench, but some will call it a swench. When we take this tool, this universal tool, what we can do first is, if our blade is too tight, we need to loosen a little bit. What I mean by too tight is I couldn't move it like this. There's a little screw on this one. It's right in between the two nuts. Some of them you'll find the screw is on an angle up in front this way. But all we got to do is loosen that a little bit. What that does, it starts loosening up our blade. The more we loosen it, the more that blade will become loose. Now we take and loosen up these nuts. Okay, so I got them loose. We can take them off this way by hand. One thing I'd like to point out is when I'm doing this, take this off, that if you remember a few years back, well, just a couple of years back, Hurricane Sandy, when I was doing research, I'd seen that there was a press release out telling it, pretty much giving a recommendation to all the chainsaw operators that they should make sure that they wear some hand, foot, and leg protections while operating chainsaw, as well as eye and hearing protection. Normally this is considered personal protection equipment, otherwise known as PPE. Okay, we have that off, and now that we have that off, you can see that it just basically can lift right off, and now we can take the chainsaw blade off. And even though this is old and it's getting dull, and that's why we're changing it, it can still cut you up, and that's a good reason why to be wearing a good set of work gloves while doing this. Okay, now I have our new blade, which I'm going to put on. This old blade, more likely we're not going to throw it out. It just needs to be resharpened, and it's always good to have an extra blade on hand when cutting out, because as blades get dull, they become more dangerous, and you're going to want to stop what you're doing and replace it. Another article that I was reading in Ground Maintenance magazine called Chainsaw Maintenance said one of the most frustrating things for chainsaw owners is a dull chainsaw blade. So we got that on there, it's in the slots. Now once I get it in there, I want to just pull forward a little bit, keep some tension on there, so I can get my cover back on. I put the cover on, and I push down on that after I push down, and as I'm holding that down, I'm going to take my two nuts and start putting those back on my hand. So if I get those on, once I get those on, then I want to just tighten it snug. I don't want to crank down too hard on this. Just want to get it snug enough to hold, because like I was showing you that screw earlier, we're going to need that to adjust this blade. Make sure that we have the proper tension on it. Okay, so I got those just snug. You should be able by hand, another reason wearing gloves, because you're grabbing this. Now this one is sharp. Okay, it's turning real easy, but we also need to pull on it. And as you can see, when I pull on it, we got quite a bit of slack in there. It's a little too much slack. So take the slack out. You have that screw right here that I mentioned earlier. We're just going to keep turning on that. And as we turn, it actually pushes the bar out and starts making it tighter. Now I notice that I don't have as much slack. It's a little bit harder to turn. Now if I turned it too much and I could barely move this, then I would need to back off because it would be too tight. So this is pretty good. You want just a little bit of slack and also be able to move the blade freely. So I'm just going to give it a little bit more. Now that I have that, I can tighten these down. And now I have a safe chainsaw to go and operate and cut some more wood with. So as I mentioned, chainsaws has one of the highest related injuries, and mainly it's because of probably improper wear of PPE and also maintenance of the chainsaw. So if you're operating a chainsaw, at least have some of the basic safety gear that I covered, such as eyeglasses, ear protection, definitely some good work gloves and some safety boots, and avoid any loose clothing while operating a chainsaw. Also, it's a good idea when you have a chainsaw, always check your blade occasionally. Even if you're cutting a lot, stop chainsaw and check this occasionally and make sure you have this tool. If it's becoming loose, you can just loosen these nuts up, tighten it a little bit, and then tighten it back down. So I wish you enjoy if you have a chainsaw, and remember, always stay safe. Thank you.